good afternoon to all of you. It's our pleasure to host the last session of the program for this week. And the title is The Benefit of Cooperating and Sharing for the Development of Personalized Medicine Participation in European Research Infrastructures. And I think that we are all aware that we have outstanding speakers that can be sharing with us this afternoon their points of view and also their work in these different infrastructures. Let me introduce you very briefly, Professor Jens Habermann. He was born in Germany and studied in medicine in Lübeck. And from September 2020, he is the director of the BBMRI-ERIC structure. I think that we all know the work of Professor Habermann, and he's also the president of the European, Middle Eastern and African Society for Biopreservation and Biobanking, and holds different positions at the University of Lübeck and the University Hospital Schleswig-Holstein, where he is head of the Interdisciplinary Center for Biobanking in Lübeck. So Jens, thanks again for being with us today, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nuria, and I'm really delighted to be here. Thank you so much also for this warm welcome and introduction. Maybe one small correction to be politically correct. I was president of ESBB, so now this is Dominik Lerman, also from Germany, but we are very closely working together in about biobanking, so to say. But today is really a pleasure to talk about two research infrastructures, particularly BBMRI-ERIC, and I will give you a short introduction what an ERIC is actually about. But before that, let's come briefly to BBMRI-ERIC. And BBMRI-ERIC really stands for Biobanking and Biomolecular Resources Research Infrastructure, which has been acknowledged as a European Research Infrastructure Consortium, in short ERIC, by the EU Commission in 2013. So next year we have 10 years anniversary. What is an ERIC about? And the ERICs are actually coming out of the ESRI roadmap, and ESRI stands for European Strategy Forum on Research Infrastructures, have been formed in 2002. And this is really a strategic instrument to develop the scientific integration of Europe and to strengthen its international outreach. It's a mission to support a coherent and strategy-led approach to policymaking on research infrastructures in Europe. And through its roadmap, it identifies new research infrastructures of pan-European interest corresponding to the long-term needs of the European research communities, covering all scientific areas regardless of possible location. And on the right side, you see basically the roadmap in a picture depicted. So out of this ESRI roadmap, then constituting ERICs, and what actually is an ERIC? And I think some of you might know in depth and others that might not know, so maybe a few words on this. So ERICs are really a specific legal form that facilitates the establishment operations of research infrastructures with European interest. They're operating on non-economic basis. They are becoming a legal entity from the date the European Commission takes a decision on taking them into effect. And they can carry out some limited economic activities. Now, what are the advantages of an ERIC? Well, they are basically by their legal capacity recognized in all EU countries. They have a flexibility to adapt to specific requirements of each infrastructure, and they're exempted from VAT. And all over, they can basically adopt their own procurement procedures, which, however, have to respect the principles of transparency, non-discrimination, and competition. And if we ask what are the requirements to become an ERIC, well, they must be a European, or they must be of European joint venture, but they can also onboard countries outside the EU to a certain extent. They need to carry out research programs and projects as a prerequisite, and it represents an added value in the development of the European research area and significant improvement in the relevant scientific and technological fields. And the advantages of an ERIC are really the effective access to the services and developments. It contributes also to the mobility of knowledge and or researchers within the era. And it contributes to the dissemination and optimization of the results. So this is a general overview of what an ERIC needs to basically fulfill. And today, I think you will hear two examples, and I start with BBMRI-ERIC. Now, there are all over 23 ERICs at the moment, and BBMRI-ERIC is coordinating this ERIC Forum project, which is funded by the EU Commission and runs its ERIC Forum Secretariat. And we are also part of the life science research infrastructures, which have not the formal status of an ERIC, but they are confound basically to really life sciences, where the 23 ERICs might be of complete different scientific focus. And currently we have 13 life science research infrastructures, also including BBMRI-ERIC. And within these life science research infrastructures, we have a very particular partnership with EATRIS and ECRIN, which is called EU-AMRI. And this is something that Toni from EATRIS will, in the second talk in this session, give a little bit more information on it. So I will be very short on this here. Now, coming to BBMRI-ERIC, here, as I said, life science research infrastructure, which is currently composed of 18 member states and 6 observers, and you see which countries joined the latest. We still have growing interest of more members to join, and we can also basically say that we are over 700 biobanks within our member and observer states, or 24 national nodes, plus 3 expert centers, 1 headquarter, and affiliated partners at our universities and university clinics. Now we have a governance model, which is, I think, probably similar among the different ERICs, but is very important. And on the decision-making level, we have the Assembly of Members, which is the highest decision-taking body, where we also get the finances from the membership fee payment, so to say. And here, finance committees and steering committees guide us and give us the mandate to operate. And on the executive level, we align with the headquarters with our 24 national node directors in the daily operations, and together with the national nodes and the biobanks behind and the biomedical resources, we conduct services and research in different fields, which I will outline in a few slides. Overall, we have the mandate of facilitating access to samples and data and biomolecular resources. And this crystallizes in our mission, which is to establish, operate, and develop a pan-European distributed research infrastructure, namely through all these national nodes and their affiliated networks behind them, of biobanks and biomolecular resources to facilitate the access to resources as well as facilities, and to support high-quality biomolecular and medical research specifically. Now, what does this mean actually in detail? There are different biobank types, and I think you're all aware of that, from healthcare integrated up to museum biobanking, and all these different biobank types have distinct requirements from biospecimen science, quality management, cryobiology and technology, IT infrastructure, LC issues, and equipment. And in BBMRI-ERIC, we have the majority of biobanks being healthcare integrated biobanks, and I will give an example in a few seconds of this. But we also have a very few biobanks who are capturing all the other different biobank types. Now, making the benefits of BBMRI-ERIC for you may be visible is if we look at the local side. And here we have clinical care on one side and translational research on the other side. And for a long time, there has been a structural gap where nobody cared about the quality of the samples or data exchange from one or to the other side. And this has been closed by healthcare integrated central biobanks, which care from patient recruitment or sample collection, sample processing, sample storage over to biometric requests, facilitated through very strong biobank information systems locally as well. And these biobank systems, if they're really powerful, they can allow not only the sample management, but they can also capture clinical data, follow-up data, and research data. And if you make these biobank information systems then accessible not only on the research side, but also on the clinical side, you can also use it for clinical trial support, molecular tumor board support, and patient empowerment and citizen engagement. Now, if this works already locally, that's fantastic for both or for all of them, the clinicians, the patients, and the scientists. But the more and more we go in towards a datafication of this research side. So healthcare integrated biobanks, if they're really powerful, become, in our view, more and more really data integration centers. And as I said, if this works locally, it's a super asset for everyone. But if you compare then cross countries and have this QM certified processes underlying, then you can really exchange samples and data and make the fullest use of it. And this is something where BBMRI on the overarching level supports across countries to make this happen. And therefore, we have different pillars here, which is starting with LC services and research on the left side, as you can see, where we have different incentives like a knowledge base, help desk, ethics checks, training, and working on a code of conduct for health research. We basically fostering our value propositions in public affairs and stakeholder engagement. So the stakeholder forum that we have has three pillars. One is composed of patients and public. The second one is based on scientific societies. And the third one is based on industry collaborations with us. And this is very closely aligned, of course, with our connections to all member states and our strategic partners. The center, of course, is a biobank unit, which really aims for the biobank operations, also cohorts. It biomolecular resources and includes BBMRI expert centers for any kind of biomedical resources activities together with the universities and clinics. But of course, if, as I pointed out in the slide before, without a strong IT portfolio, this connection across countries will be really difficult. And that's why we have a very strong IT services and research pillar, from discovery over access to data depositioning, interoperability, data protection, of course, quality controlling, and also including training and support. And all of this is basically overarching covered by quality management services and research, also with a knowledge hub, training, support, auditing, and quality assurance. And in a little bit more detail, you can then see how the different pillars work. So for instance, in LC, we have overarching topics like quality of life, artificial intelligence, GDPR compliance, or the development of the code of conduct for health research, or how to deal with incidental findings, for instance. And all these topics are then following three pillars within the LC. One is on research, one is on services, and one is on training. And for instance, on the help desk knowledge base, these are open access platforms that you can use for your own research or any questions that you have, and get in contact with the overarching community. And here it's important to know that it's not the headquarter that is basically composing the help desk or the knowledge base. It's really the network of LC experts across the entire BBMRI network. So there are always national experts being part of this, contributing. So you will also find a specific support and help for your national or regional concerns and questions. Now, everything goes, of course, with the consent by the patient, and this is an ideal consent procedure that you see here, that it's basically capturing samples and data. In the best case scenario, this is captured electronically by the hospital information system and then pushed forward to the biobank information system in basically a very frequent way, so that the biobank information system has online data available. And if the consent allows the use of samples and data in national and international projects for academia and industry, then the biobank is ready to share the samples and data across the entire network for whoever is in need of it. And this can be, as I said, academic or industry scientists. Now, BBMRI is really advancing implementing precision medicine as an overarching goal, and we are focusing on particular three disease areas, which is cancer on the one hand, rare and pediatric diseases on the other hand, and COVID-19 infectious diseases on the third hand. And of course, it's important to know that all the BBMRI biobanks also collect or support any other disease research based on the local requirements. But it's all about data and samples across the entire patient path, from screening or therapy to surveillance. And here I think it's very important to realize that in the routine diagnostics, of course, the samples or the biomarkers that are analyzed are normally stable. But if you work towards precision medicine, these are normally new biomarkers at the interface to the research side or translational research side. So these biomarkers or these therapies might require complete different treatment or handling of samples. And this is something where the biobanks, the hospital integrated biobanks particularly, can support also on the clinical side. And we all know that downstream analysis are really depending on quality of the samples. And here just a few downstream analysis named. And I think we all know that it's getting more and more complex if we go into metabolomics or microbiomics, for instance. Now, it's, I think, also important to realize that still the pre-analytical phase accounts for a huge laboratory error. And that we all also know that still a lot of funding and budget is spent on irreproducible preclinical research. And this accounts for the very strong pillar that we have set up in BBMRI to address this with the quality, where we have now also entered into a CME accredited BBMRI Academy with different training courses. And here we have, for instance, a knowledge hub where we contribute to international standard developments. We are part of projects on the EU level, and we have outreach activities when and where needed. We are also focusing particularly on the training and support, specifically on pre-analytics or the new biobank standard, the ISO 23387. And we have an own auditing system where the biobanks can basically request self-assessment tools. And if they feel that they're ready either for the biobank or specific cohorts, then we can come in and have an audit. And if the audit goes well, then they can qualify for quality mark in our directory. And I will come to the directory in a second. Now, there's also a task force on quality assurance, which means that we're looking at intrinsic or extrinsic biomarkers to assess samples also of unknown origin and to basically capture the quality status of samples independent of reviewing or capturing the processes or processing of samples, as it's done by the ISO standards. Now, coming back to the directory is really our list of biobanks, which basically comprises about 700 biobanks currently. And this is all captured as at the beginning, which biobanks have what kind of samples and data available. And it's the beginning of our entire IT path to make accessible samples and data to whoever is requesting it. So the directory is a very low granular form where you can see the biobanks. The locator and finder are more granular tools where you can search on individual sample or data level. Once you find what you might be interested in, you can transport this automatically to our negotiator tool, which is a matchmaking tool between the respective biobank that has the specific samples or data you're looking for. This also goes along with access policies, so that is an easy procedure for everyone. It can also be accompanied by our ethics checks. And in the end, it's basically also covered by material transfer agreement or data transfer agreement up to the reporting of the results or successful exchange of samples and data. And it's important to know that these biobanks are now BBMRI biobanks, but we have also opened our directory for any biobank that can provide or visualize COVID or rare disease samples and data for use. So you see here basically a world map where we have different biobanks contributing to COVID-19 samples and data currently. And this is basically operating specifically since the COVID pandemic started. If you would like to use the access to these tools, then you can see here the websites, and under the directory you can find specific cohorts like for COVID-19, cancer, rare diseases, and pediatrics, or any other disease cohorts. You can also specifically look then more for individual samples and data through the locator and negotiator tool. Or if this is all too complex, please don't mind, contact our help desk, and then we will guide you through to make it as easy as possible for you. Now, what kind of data can you actually envision that we have here? It's first of all personal phenotype data. It's also clinical data with biochemical measurements. It can be imaging data, omics data, possible other types of data from surveys, for instance. We have also connections to national registries. And more important, I think, are becoming patient-provided data. So this depends, of course, on the local biobanks, what they can provide and what they can link to. But we are working from the headquarters with our national nodes to further harmonize these data sets across our entire network. Now, as I said already, this is only possible through a very strong IT services and research pillar, and I don't want to go through all these bullet points again. You can easily see it here, but I think what is important to realize is this entire BBMRI-ERIC IT ecosystem has become more and more important part of different projects, and I just call a few of them. So it's the EOSC, it's understanding cancer, or it can be also European Health Data Space 2, so making clinical data available for research. And this is where the IT ecosystem of BBMRI plays a fundamental role. Now, I talked about our stakeholder forum with the 3 pillars. What the active or the actual activities are now in our next 3 years work program are with our stakeholder forum pillars, with our national nodes, and with our biobanks, reaching out even further and intensifying our interactions with our stakeholders, be it the scientists at the universities or the clinicians at the hospitals, and our expert centers. And this is something where I think we can all win also for making precision medicine possible. And this is, I think, where this presentation or this session is really important also for us to make you aware what we can offer. And if you have any questions, please don't mind to get in touch with us at any time. Now, how you can interact if you're part of BBMRI member state is also through our task forces, expert and working groups, and you can see a few of them. Some of them basically depicting LC topics, others depicting quality topics. Then we have strong IT task forces, but we also work on the national nodes and biobanks operations, sustainability, working on success stories to raise awareness of what biobanks can help to make precision medicine on individual patient basis successful, but also for patient groups, of course. And communications and outreach will be also becoming more and more important to raise awareness among the communities. Now we have also research and education events. First of all, the BBMRI-ERIC Academy, which you can find on our website. We have also an IT symposium in partnership with ESBB, as well as the International Biobank Conference Qatar, which I believe will happen the next year in autumn. Which is organized by the Qatar Foundation and ESBB and BBMRI-ERIC and ISPER. And then we have also our Euro Biobank Week in partnership with ESBB, which will happen face-to-face as a face-to-face congress next time in spring next year. What we have started this year to engage more in the different communities is really the Euro Biobank Week Roadshow with very specific topic meetings face-to-face in our member states, and this is the first one here in September now in Regensburg on quality in biobanking. Now I think I'm almost at the end. I would like to highlight that BBMRI-ERIC is co-funding itself through many EU-funded projects, 25 at the moment, with our partners. And I think this is a very important point also for you, that it's not only that we provide services at request from you, but we are also very interested in engaging with you in common projects through our biobanks, through our national nodes. And BBMRI headquarters can and will here facilitate, for instance, the administration of project proposals. So if you're interested, please get in contact with Eva, who is having the third talk on this session as our national node director in Spain, because Eva will at some point reach out to you as well with our focus topic expert matrix, so where you can basically sign up and say, well, I'm interested in a certain research topic in order to be part of our activities. So I think with this one, I'm at the end, and you see there also our general contact email address and our website. So if there are any questions left, then which can't be answered during the discussion round in the end of the session, then please feel free to contact us. Thank you very much. And yeah, we are giving it back to you. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jens. Now it's my pleasure to introduce to all of you Professor Toni Andreu. Toni is an MD and PhD specialized in genetics and genomics, specifically for rare diseases. But I think that the curriculum of Toni is very extensive also. And I would like to also briefly comment that he has been very active in the field of policy making, also holding positions as the director of the Spanish National Institute of Health, Carlos III, as well as Director General for Research and Innovation at the Catalan Ministry of Health. So it's my pleasure to give the floor to Toni Andreu, who will be speaking about EATRIS. So Toni, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Nuria. Okay, so first of all, a pleasure being here together with members of the Spanish community, also having Jens, my colleague Jens Habermann, director of BBMRI. And Jens facilitated my life because he already explained the concept of a distributed research infrastructure, the concept of the ERIC, infrastructure. And basically, I will start saying that EATRIS, the European Infrastructure for Translational Medicine, belongs to the same community of infrastructures that Jens was talking about. It's interesting because after listening to Jens' presentation, you will see, I'm going to talk and present what EATRIS is about. And you will see that we share with BBMRI some common trends, but we also have different particularities. And I think this is one of the key elements of this rich landscape of research infrastructures in Europe. We share this kind of common structure and common image, but each of us has developed in a slightly different way. In the case of EATRIS, the European Infrastructure for Translational Medicine, we have a clear mission focus on this concept of translational medicine, understanding translational medicine by the process by which the knowledge generated by science is transformed after a long and very bumpy and painful pathway into a practical solution for the patient community. So this process that we call translational medicine is a disease-agnostic process, and your understanding is a process that is common to different disease areas, because the bottlenecks that are distributed along this long journey are very similar, regardless if you are doing research in neurodegenerative disorders or cardiovascular medicine or whatever. So the mission of EATRIS, therefore, is to accelerate the translation of this knowledge that is emerging from the discovery process in the academia and translate them into patient benefit. And for doing that, we need to put together all those communities that are essential for the journey to be effective. And that means not only academia, that means only the industry, not only the regulatory bodies that have to reassure that the product that is going to reach the patient at the end, it's compliant with all the requirements that are embedded into the regulatory process, and of course, the clinical community and also the patient community. So what we want to do in EATRIS is to support, using the capacities of our community, all these different stakeholders with our expertise and our knowledge to facilitate the development of this process. The current structure of EATRIS is a research infrastructure formed by 14 countries. Spain was a founding member from the very beginning, and currently in EATRIS we have 127 research institutes in these 14 countries. Currently in Spain there are 22 research organizations that are members of EATRIS. Based on the decision of the Instituto de Salud Carlos III, who's the governmental representative of Spain in the governing body of EATRIS, the institutes that are part of the Spanish EATRIS community are those that are accredited by the Carlos III, those that belong to the program of Institutos Acreditados del Carlos III. The capacities of the organizations are structured into 5 different scientific platforms. So the contents of EATRIS is provided by knowledge and expertise in these 5 different platforms: ATMPs, advanced therapy medical products, biomarkers, imaging and tracing, also small molecules, and also vaccine, inflammation, and immunomonitoring. You will see there is a common flavor across these 5 different scientific technological domains, which are essential elements in the preclinical development of novel solutions on novel drugs. Like BBMRI, we have ERIC status. That means that we have these capacities that James was mentioning about, and EATRIS participates in some key transversal and huge European projects providing the capacities of our community. So like BBMRI, we are organizing what we call the hub and spoke model. There is a central coordination office which sits in Amsterdam, and in Amsterdam there is a group of around between 25 and 30 people that have different expertise, scientific, regulatory, managerial, ground support, etc., that are responsible for coordinating the activities of the entire European organization. And this concept of hub and spoke model means that the core of the activities of EATRIS sits in what we call the national nodes, the communities of practice that are located in a particular member state, in a particular national. In every national node, there is a coordination team, which has 2 people in front, the national director, which is the representative of the scientific community in the national node. In the case of Spain, the current national director is Laura García Bermejo, who is currently the scientific director of the Instituto de Investigación Ramón y Cajal in Madrid, and a national coordinator, which is a profile that has the project managerial profile and is the person in charge of organizing the operational aspects of the activities of EATRIS at the national node. Within every national node, in the case of Spain, there are research groups that belong to these 22 institutions. To put as an example, in the case of Spain, that they have scientific and technological capacities in ATMP research, small molecules, biomarkers, and also vaccines, imaging and tracing. So these are the, let's say, the headlines of the kind of, let's say, the scientific and technological facilities and capacities that are in the research infrastructure. In the ATMP product, we have groups and institutions that are very active in the field of gene therapy, tissue engineering, GMP facilities, vector design and production, and so on. For biomarkers, people working in omic technologies, not only genomic, but also other omic technologies. Also imaging biomarkers are part of this group. Imaging and tracing, they've been working a lot in the development of tracers, particularly for preclinical studies on PET imaging, GMP tracer development, and also imaging, specific imaging technologies for research at the preclinical level and also the clinical level, high-field MRI, ultra-high-field, and optical and hybrid imaging for preclinical imaging studies in translational medicine research. The activities that are located in the small molecules platform had to do a lot with screening capacities, development of in vitro models for screening molecules, and also capacities for drug reformulation and the preclinical validation of nanomedicines. And finally, in vaccines and immunotherapy, immunoprofiling, there are groups that are working basically in the immunology field and also in the vaccine development. What do we do? First of all, I would like to put on the table one concept that I think is valid for EATRIS, is valid also for BBMRI, and is valid for every research infrastructure. What we are, research infrastructures, is basically a community of practice that has the expertise to offer these services to the entire European research. And in our case, what we do, and that's also quite similar to BBMRI and other research infrastructures, is we provide access to research services to these communities that need the services that are located in EATRIS. And actually, I think it's quite interesting because this concept of offering research services in this kind of distributed manner has to do with the initial intention of the European Commission when they launched the ESFIR roadmap. The entire idea, let me give you an example, is that if one researcher, let's put it an example in Bulgaria, needs a facility that is located in Denmark through the research infrastructures, this process of accessing this particular research service is facilitated. And this is the core concept of the mission of research infrastructure. So in our case, we provide these services not only to the research community, to the academic community, sorry, but also the industry, academia, and also to the research funders. Altogether, as a community of practice that has the highest, let's say, the latest and the outstanding technologies that are required for the development of biomedical research, we also work together within our community practices and also with other communities. And I'll give you a couple of examples with other research infrastructure in the development of new research tools, new technologies that are required for the acceleration of the translational medicine process. And like BBMRI, we put a focus on training the next generation of translational research scientists, because one of our, let's say, concerns is that with the excessive, or let's say the hyper specialization in biomedical research, there is a real risk that a particular researcher working in the field loses the overall perspective, an helicopter perspective of what we are doing. So we are very much interested in training a next generation of translational scientists that have, even though they will have a specific technological and scientific expertise, they will still be able to have an overall perspective of the challenges and opportunities across the disease domain that this particular researcher is studying. And at the end of the day, what we want is contributing with our energy and our capacities to improve the translational research ecosystem, breaking the silos that currently are heavily marking the development of the roadmap in Europe, and making sure that people that need to work together for accelerating the development of novel solutions for the patient community are able to do that. So just to give you a snapshot of the kind of services and the kind of users that we have over the last few years, EATRIS has been providing services to more than 300 organizations. Most of them, as you see, half of them are academic requests that come from the academia, which means that one particular researcher, as I say, in Bulgaria, needs a particular technology, and we facilitate the access, locating the best service across the entire network. But also a growing number of SMEs and biotechs that look at the research infrastructure as a source of providers for the specific capacities that are needed for the development of their own agendas. And there is also a growing number of the big pharma that more and more they come to us when they need a specific facility or a specific access to one particular service. As you know, the organization of the big pharma, it's quite particular because they have their own agenda, their own wall, their own network, but more and more they are approaching research infrastructures when they need to have access to these latest technologies that have been developed in the scientific domain. And also charities and funding agencies, they come to us when they require a particular service. Maybe sometimes it's not a wet lab service, but it's sometimes providing advice in the translation and assessment of the project that they are developing or so on. This is not a random, let's say, activity. There is a structured plan behind that. And EATRIS, like also BBMRI or other infrastructure, operates following the strategy that has been discussed, brainstorming, and endorsed by the community in a strategic plan. We are in the final phase of our current 2019-2022 strategic plan that had this kind of headline, empowering communities to accelerate translation. That represents the flavor that I was just discussing with you. But also, we are now in the process of preparing our new strategic plan, 2023-2026, which is going to represent the, let's say, the roadmap for our development as a research infrastructure. I'm going to give you a few examples because I think examples are probably the best way to make these concepts a little bit more closer to us. One of the activities that represents this this mission of putting this community of practice together for developing novel tools is EATRIS Plus. EATRIS Plus is a flagship project that was funded by the European Commission in 2020 with 5 million euros within the EATRIS community to create new tools and new services for the progress of personalized medicine. And in this project, we're working not only with academia, but also with industry, regulators, clinicians, with patients, to develop these novel tools. As an example, we are all working together for developing novel multi-omic technologies that will be able to integrate not only genomic outcomes, but also with other molecular outcomes, proteomic, transcriptomic, lipidomic, that want to put together and create a complex individual biomarker signature that will provide a more precise image of the particular biology of one particular phenomenon in a given patient. So this is, I think this is important because these are the faces behind this concept. Obviously, like BBMRI or infrastructures, organizations made by people, and people are the driving force of all this energy. So this is the way we are organized. Every platform that represents the capacities that are located in a particular technology domain across the entire infrastructure is led by 1, 2, or sometimes 3 scientists that are called the platform chairs or co-chairs, that are scientists with a strong reputation in the field, that are responsible for representing scientific community at the European level of that particular technology area. And as you see here, we have for the ATMP biologicals platform is chaired by Juliana Ferrari from Ospedale San Rafael in Italy, co-chaired by a Spanish scientist, Miguel Chillon, from the Hebron Research Institute. Same for biomarkers. Biomarker is a huge platform, probably represents a third of the EATRIS activity. Is chaired by Anne van Gogh from Rijnmond University in Netherlands, and co-chaired by Laura García Bermejo from Ramón y Cajal in Madrid, and Andrea Scherer from the Finnish Institute for Molecular Medicine in Finland. In that case, Laura García Bermejo is the co-chair of the entire European biomarker platform, and is also, as I mentioned before, the EATRIS National Director for Spain. For small molecules, we have Mario Salmona and Alfredo Budillon, imaging and tracing Per Winstrup at the Vrije University Medical Center in Amsterdam, and for vaccines, Lucia Gabriele, Jens Lagerman. And then there are these 4 other professionals that are members of the coordination and support team in Amsterdam. We call them the project managers, because the function of the project manager is to support the platform managers. Their function is to support the platform chairs in the development of activities, and they represent the connection of the scientific community with the platforms at the coordination and support level. Martin Decor is the platform manager for the small molecules platform, Sara Sudino for the imaging and tracing, David Morrow for NTMP and vaccines, and Emanuela Toni for biomarkers. So this idea, and then the idea of this organizational model is to create a fluent communication, like workflow between the different layers and the different activities of the infrastructure. This is just to give you a more precise snapshot of the activities and the capacities of every platform. For ATMPs, ATMPs is formed by 44 institutions that have art facilities, state-of-the-art facilities in this ATMP-related cutting-edge technologies, such as, for instance, design and production of ATMP products, preclinical tools for assessing the safety and efficacy of these tools, therapy products, imaging facilities, with a particular emphasis on cell tracking. That has been one of the interests of the ATMP platform over the last couple of years, and also characterization and monitoring of treatment-related immunogenicity evaluation, and of course access to clinical expertise and access to patients. They participate as members of the EATRIS community in several projects that are related to the progress of ATMP products into the European landscape. Here you have 3 examples. One of them is Advance. Advance is a project funded by the European Commission that wants to support the training, the development for early career biomedical scientists that are working in the ATMP development cycle. And the project offers to ATMP scientists, particularly early career, as I say, online courses, webinars, different workshops and different activities to facilitate their professional growth as experts in ATMP products. Biomarkers, as I say, is the biggest platform in EATRIS. Currently, almost 80 European biomarker development centers with strong focus on identifying individual biomarker signatures for the progress of personalized medicine. And they have expertise in multi-omic technology, single-cell analysis, immunomonitoring, also imaging biomarkers and radiomics, digital diagnostics, and of course, data integration, because it's one of the big challenges in the biomarker field, integrating different data sets that come from different biomarker pipelines to create some sort of comprehensive biomarker signatures, with a strong focus on not only on the development of biomarkers, but also on the preclinical and clinical validation of biomarkers. Actually, I was very happy that Jens put on the table that one of the key missions of research infrastructure is the quality of biomedical research, to make sure that the investment that we do is not wasted, and we are developing a culture for quality and reproducibility, because this is still today one of the big challenges that we have in the biomedical research domain. So one example of the activities of the biomarker platform, and this is a beautiful example of the cooperation of research infrastructure, is the participation of the biomarker experts in the EATRIS community in cancer. This is a huge project. It's coordinated by BBMRI and want to provide services for accelerating cancer research in Europe. So 22 EATRIS institutions participate in and lead the one work package for developing biomarkers for cancer research. This is a project that is a beautiful composition of different research infrastructure led by BBMRI that shows the power of the cooperation of this organizational model. Imaging platform, 47 facilities that, as I said, they work a lot on the development of new tracers for imaging, preclinical imaging research, PET and other modalities, and also in medical imaging acquisition and analyzing, and very active platform that has obviously a very important future, as medical imaging is going to be one of the key elements for the progress of biomedical research in Europe. And also, this has allowed us to explore novel approaches for organizing and accelerating the cooperation across different stakeholders. And this is one example, the Innovation Hub with GSK. This is a permanent structure of cooperation between GSK, the pharmaceutical company, and 6 EATRIS institutions that work on a permanent basis together for developing imaging tools in the field of inflammatory diseases, facilitating a stable model of public-private collaboration. Vaccine and inflammation, they work a lot over the last few years in the development of immunomonitoring and immunocheckpoint profiles for preclinical research. Obviously, they had a very active role over the last couple of years in the development of COVID, and they're participating in ICIDOR, which is another project similar to cancer research that provides services, in this case not for cancer, but for providing services for the process of pandemic preparedness in Europe after the experience that we had on COVID-19. And here, EATRIS, 10 EATRIS institutions are participating in the project. Also, BBMRI is participating in the project. And we are leading work package 12, providing services for immunomonitoring and immunoprofiling. Small molecules, as I said, a lot of expertise in screening capacities, developing preclinical validation models for novel targets and novel molecules, also pharmacology, medical chemistry and toxicology, and basically end-to-end solutions also to support drug repurposing. And this is a great example of the capacities that we have. Actually, EATRIS is now coordinating Remedy for All. Remedy for All is a project that was just funded by the European Commission. 25 million euros to create a platform for repurposing drugs in Europe. And significant part of the driving force of this project coordinated by EATRIS is the contribution of members of the small molecule platform. But as I said before, we open our scope to those communities that are essential also in the progress of translational medicine. And one of these communities, of course, is the patient community. And together with EUPATI, the European Patients Academy in Therapeutic Innovation, also with the European Patient Forum, who's probably the most important umbrella organization for patient advocacy groups, representing more than 150 patient advocacy groups in Europe. We are working together for developing tools for patient education, also for training researchers on meaningful patient engagement, because sometimes we talk about patient engagement, but the research community doesn't really know how to make this operational, and we're working with them for the training the research community in this case, and at the end of the day for coordinating with the development of responsible research policies of the European Union, co-creating with this research process with the patient, engaging in the research process from the beginning. But as Jens mentioned before, I think the best example for the potential collaboration between this organization, research infrastructure, is the decision that together with BBMRI and ERIC, we took a couple of years ago for creating the European Alliance for Medical Research Infrastructure. Basically, we decided together the three infrastructures to join forces because it was clear that we needed to cooperate for increasing the impact of biomedical research and research infrastructure on patients' lives, accelerating the development of solutions for unmet medical needs, being able to develop integrated service for complex projects. More and more, what we see is that particular research does not need just a technology, but it needs a constellation of technologies that are linked to each other, and they have to come from probably different providers. And at the end of the day, as Jens mentioned, for fostering quality and reproducibility in biomedical research, providing the highest standards and being a reference for the entire global community for the kind of services that we provide. So the aim of let's say the tagline of our identity is accelerating patient-centered biomedical research. And when we start working together is working together on training programs, creating joint research services, also working together for establishing partnership with other stakeholders, that's industry, patient researchers and patients, creating a single voice of a community of practice, developing our public image and having a voice in the policy-making decisions at the European levels, and of course, coordinating the access and accelerating the collaboration between projects, having quality as let's say, the lighthouse of our identity, and joint operational resources when necessary, working with our coordination teams and creating common groups of operations for developing our own agenda. Actually, thanks to this attitude, I would say, we are already working together in some key European large projects that want to transform the landscape in Europe at the level of data integration, development of personalized medicine, cancer and infectious diseases research, novel approaches for clinical trials, and at the end of the day, putting our expertise and our willingness in accelerating the development of the solutions for patients. This is also not random. We have a short-term, medium-term, and long-term, because this is a journey that has to be taken step by step. And EATRIS is very happy to be part of this journey. And anyway, so I think I was able to provide you a little bit of a snapshot of who we are. Thank you so much for your attention. I'm looking forward to the dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Toni, for this super clear explanation about the EATRIS and also how can we profit from this infrastructure and the work you are doing all together. So now is the time for the last talk of today. And it's my pleasure to introduce to all of you Eva Ortega. Eva is PhD in chemistry, and after almost 17 years in Sweden, in where she was also working in the South of Sweden Service Center for BBMRI infrastructure, she came back to Spain and she was appointed the scientific director for the biobank at CENIO, in the Spanish National Cancer Research Center. And Eva is also coordinating the hub of biobanks in the platform of biobanks and biomodels from the Institute of Health Carlos III. And I will leave here the curriculum from Eva, because apart of all these things, she's also very active in many other activities, as for example, the network Renacer, among other things that maybe we can discuss later during the discussion. So Eva, the floor is yours, and I'm very happy to listen to you here today.
Thank you very much, Nuria, and also I would like to say thank you to the organizers. Although I would enjoy doing this presentation in English, I'm going to move into Spanish since they told me that most of the audience is Spanish speaking. And since I'm the last one and many of the things have been told already, I will just make a review in another language. But volviendo al punto, muchas gracias Nuria, muchas gracias a Irival, a María José Marín por la invitación para estar aquí con vosotros. Gracias por esta amable presentación, compañera. Voy a empezar por decir quién soy. Como ha dicho Nuria, bueno, pues soy Eva Ortega y estoy en el Biobanco del Centro Nacional de Investigaciones Oncológicas. La presentación hoy va a ir en torno al papel de España dentro del Consorcio Europeo de BBMRI-ERIC. A estas alturas, después tanto de la charla de su director general como de nuestro último ponente, pues os han dado una pequeña introducción de qué es BBMRI-ERIC. Deciros que esta incorporación, pese a que el Consorcio Europeo empezó, los primeros pasos se tomaron en el año 2019 y no se formó como entidad hasta el año 2013, nuestra incorporación no ha visto la luz hasta que se ha publicado prácticamente hace un año, el 7 de junio del año 2021, esta adherencia al Consorcio Europeo con la red de biobancos. Comentaros que estos pasos que os he dicho se empezaron a dar a principios del año 2019 y eran prácticamente 10 los pioneros en donde se encontraba un español, Manuel Ponente, que fue también director del Biobanco del Centro Nacional de Investigaciones Oncológicas. Su jubilación fue la razón por la cual yo retorné después de estos 17 años y tomé la dirección de este biobanco. Comentaros que España se ha incorporado a BBMRI-ERIC como observador y no como miembro de pleno derecho. Como ya se ha comentado con anterioridad, son 23 nodos nacionales los que conforman BBMRI-ERIC más una agencia de investigación que es la Agencia de Investigación en Cáncer. España se ha incorporado como observador y esto lo único que tiene de diferencia con respecto a los miembros de pleno derecho es que en principio no tenemos capacidad de voto. Este consorcio europeo agrupa, como también ha comentado Jens con anterioridad, a más de 700 biobancos y sirve para tener una visión muy clara, que es el uso de muestras biológicas humanas y recursos biomoleculares, de ahí sus siglas, que favorecerá la identificación de biomarcadores de distintas patologías, así como de nuevas dianas terapéuticas para el descubrimiento y desarrollo de nuevos fármacos. Como veis, este es el objetivo que tiene como moto, como su logo, BBMRI-ERIC, que es Making New Treatments, es decir, es facilitar el acceso a las más avanzadas tecnologías, recursos químicos y biológicos e instalaciones, así como el conocimiento y experiencia compartidos a nivel europeo. De este modo, el consorcio BBMRI-ERIC apoyará la investigación médica y molecular de alta calidad y favorecerá el descubrimiento de nuevos fármacos y compuestos con actividad biológica. Siguiendo un poco el hilo conductor, decir que uno de los objetivos, evidentemente, es conceder un acceso efectivo a sus recursos y servicios a través del desarrollo. Por ejemplo, si sabéis un poco cómo funciona la Plataforma Nacional de Biobancos, que dirige y coordina mi compañera Nuria Montserrat, que es la moderadora de este coloquio, pues a través, por ejemplo, de un directorio o catálogo virtual y una ventanilla de acceso único a todo el arsenal de muestras que están almacenadas en estos biobancos junto a sus datos asociados. Esto también se verá reflejado con el acceso efectivo a sus recursos y a este desarrollo de esta ventanilla, mejorando la interoperabilidad, definiendo esta como la capacidad de los sistemas de información y de los procedimientos a los que se da soporte, compartiendo datos y posibilitando este intercambio de información y conocimiento entre los distintos biobancos, desde luego no solo a nivel nacional, como es uno de los objetivos de la plataforma, sino también a nivel internacional. ¿De qué manera? Compartiendo un pool de datos mínimos con una identidad semántica. Por supuesto, habrá que implantar también una gestión de calidad no solo de las muestras, armonizando y normalizando procedimientos, mejorando prácticas y desarrollando herramientas adecuadas para aumentar esta calidad de los recursos recopilados, así como toda la información asociada. Para esto se va a trabajar en el desarrollo de estudios de alta calidad de muestra, es decir, no solo en la calidad per se, que sí, por ejemplo, anotando todas las variables preanalíticas dentro del procesamiento de las muestras que nos llevan a tantos errores de análisis y por tanto también a proyectos o resultados que nos pueden confundir, sino también, por supuesto, a acreditación y normalización de procedimientos, también en la información y, como he comentado antes, con una semántica común que hagan posible estas búsquedas. Por otro lado, también hay que promover el enriquecimiento continuado de los recursos de los biobancos, es decir, generar nuevas colecciones, cohortes, con sus correspondientes datos asociados, información, a fin de mantener un adecuado suministro de muestras para cumplir con las necesidades de la comunidad científica, favoreciendo el aumento de la utilización y la difusión de conocimientos. Uno de los dichos que yo oí en un congreso que me encantó es que el mejor biobanco es un biobanco vacío. ¿Y esto cómo se hace? Cediendo estas muestras, así como aumentando la optimización de resultados de las actividades de investigación basadas en estos recursos que van a proporcionar todos los biobancos, no solo a través de la coordinación dentro de la plataforma nacional, sino también en Europa. Por otro lado, se deberían también prestar servicios de investigación en colaboración con instituciones públicas y privadas. Es importante favorecer esta colaboración, ser una unidad de servicio que alimente proyectos a nivel público como a nivel privado, puesto que en muchos casos, si no en la mayoría, estos tratamientos que se van a hacer, que van a revertir a la sociedad, normalmente vienen de empresas biofarmacéuticas en el ámbito privado. Por otro lado, habría que establecer también y aplicar avances tecnológicos relacionados con los recursos y servicios suministrados, es decir, incorporar aquellos desarrollos tecnológicos y científicos de vanguardia para que esta plataforma de servicios esté en los últimos o al último sea puntera en estos desarrollos de lo que hemos venido hablando, tanto como en la calidad y suministro de muestras como en todos estos datos que llevan asociadas estas muestras, puesto que no hay que olvidar que un biobanco se define como aquel establecimiento donde se almacenan muestras de calidad con sus datos asociados. Sin la información clínica, las muestras tienen poco valor. Por otro lado, también habría que favorecer y proporcionar formación a gente, a las personas, al personal investigador, incluso a otro personal científico que esté interesado tanto en promover, incluso dentro de nosotros, los que nos llamamos profesionales de los biobancos, para facilitar esta divulgación, esta educación y la movilidad de los investigadores en este tema relacionado con las muestras, es decir, en los biobancos y sus recursos biomoleculares a fin de reforzar y estructurar el espacio europeo en investigación. Pues si esto no fuera poco, uno de los objetivos también, y ya pasando a un ámbito internacional, es poner en marcha actividades conjuntas. Como habéis visto, BBMRI-ERIC está formado por 23 nodos nacionales. Entonces, no solo es esta relación con estos nodos europeos, sino también puede ser con otras organizaciones no europeas que estén interesadas en estas actividades. Y cuando proceda, también coordinarse con otras con otras organizaciones, como ha sido el caso que nos ha presentado nuestro anterior ponente con EATRIS, es decir, esta Alianza Europea de Infraestructuras de Investigación Médica, que es la colaboración no solo entre EATRIS, como ha presentado Andreu, sino también entre ECRIN y BBMRI-ERIC. Estas tres infraestructuras de investigación funcionan en paralelo, proporcionan servicios complementarios a los investigadores en el campo de ciencias biomédicas y apoya el desarrollo, como nos han venido diciendo, de la medicina personalizada y de nuevos tratamientos. ¿Cuál es el objetivo de por ejemplo, esta nueva formación? Pues su objetivo, evidentemente, es ofrecer un flujo de trabajo a los investigadores en ciencias biomédicas a través de una ventanilla única, como veis, objetivos compartidos tanto en la Plataforma Nacional de Biobancos como con el Nodo Nacional dentro del Consorcio Europeo, para favorecer esta colaboración con la industria, es decir, ser una unidad también de servicio para la industria y para el mundo académico, y así tener una gama de servicios adecuado en acuerdo con las necesidades y objetivos que se comparten en otras organizaciones, como habéis visto en el caso de EATRIS y en el caso nuestro de BBMRI-ERIC. Todos estos objetivos se alcanzan consiguiendo una infraestructura nacional sólida basada en la conexión de todos los biobancos a nivel nacional que van a también conectar con los otros nodos nacionales dentro del marco europeo. En el caso nuestro, y como quizá ya habéis oído en presentaciones anteriores, esta coordinación nacional se hace a través de la plataforma del Instituto de Salud Carlos III de Biobancos y Biomodelos, plataforma que está constituida por 4 hubs o áreas de servicio que van desde los biobancos que presentamos ahora y que ya os han venido presentando hasta los modelos animales, la impresión en 3 dimensiones y los organoides. Su coordinadora, parte también del nodo científico de BBMRI-ERIC como nodo nacional, es la doctora Núria Montserrat, que tenemos el placer de tenerla hoy como moderadora de esta mesa. La plataforma nacional, como ya os he comentado, está distribuida por toda la geografía nacional y a día de hoy reúne 57 biobancos que almacenan casi 3.500 colecciones y que representan un arsenal de más de 530.000 muestras. Como veis, los objetivos que os he venido presentando coinciden con los pilares básicos de cualquier biobanco, que se reúnen y se resumen en responsabilidad y transparencia, acceso a muestras humanas y sus datos asociados para investigación biomédica. Por supuesto, asegurar en todo el procedimiento la calidad tanto de las muestras como de la información asociada, investigar, diseminar y educar en cuestiones relacionadas con los biobancos y, por último, pero no por esto menos importante, tratar temas regulatorios dentro de la estructura que gobierna los biobancos en cuestiones éticas, legales y de sociedad. Llegados a este punto, podréis ir observando que los biobancos y sus redes son más que establecimientos de almacenamiento de muestras. Son ecosistemas muy complejos que abarcan desde marcos económicos, pasando por sociales, políticos e institucionales, sin olvidarnos de la clave en la investigación translacional, que es el marco científico-tecnológico. Esta complejidad reúne un colectivo importante de actores y activos que estando bien engranados, van a resultar en el alcance de nuestro objetivo principal, que es el desarrollo de fármacos que curen o mejoren en general la vida de los pacientes y de la sociedad. Es decir, lo que se ha venido llamando la traslación, la investigación translacional, desde la pollata, desde la investigación básica hasta la traducción en la clínica. Basados en esta estructura organizativa que ya os ha presentado Jens para BBMRI-ERIC, nosotros hemos empezado a desarrollar la gobernanza de nuestro nodo nacional. El nodo nacional consta de 2 partes principales, que es la asamblea de miembros, representados por el Ministerio de Ciencia e Innovación bajo la figura de Cristina Baulud y el Instituto de Salud Carlos III representado por Elena María Domènech. Además de esta asamblea de miembros, hay una coordinación científica que está formada por Núria Montserrat, coordinadora de la plataforma del Instituto de Salud Carlos III de Biobancos y Biomodelos, y por mí misma como coordinadora del nacional de este nodo. El resto del nodo está bajo construcción, pero sí puedo presentar, como habéis visto, en los grupos de trabajo que ha presentado Jens, habría grupos de trabajo que reunirían los principales pilares, que serían tanto temas éticos, legales y de sociedad. Hay un grupo de trabajo de lo que denominamos nosotros ELSI, como grupos de trabajo o fuerzas de trabajo, en este caso, para temas de IT o para temas de calidad, como también grupos de trabajo de calidad. A día de hoy ya tenemos asentados la figura de proxy, que está representada por Enrique de Álava, del Hospital Virgen de Rocío, en Sevilla, y también miembro de IBIS, y el punto de administración, que es la Oficina de Coordinación de la Plataforma Nacional de Biobancos y Biomodelos, bajo la figura de Aurora García. El resto del nodo lo iremos desarrollando poco a poco a medida que se vayan incorporando esos actores que son claves para el desarrollo de estos grupos y que nos van a dar un arsenal como país para entrar a llegar a los objetivos, para llegar a estos objetivos que nos hemos marcado y que os he presentado con anterioridad. Entre ellos, por ejemplo, son claves el directorio, donde se presentan todas las colecciones y biobancos, el catálogo virtual y esa ventanilla única que va a poner a disposición de los investigadores y científicos todas esas muestras y colecciones que tenemos como nodo nacional y que os he presentado con anterioridad. Sin duda, algunos de los biobancos y por ende sus redes son pilares indispensables para la investigación translacional, tanto en temas de cantidad, para el estudio, por ejemplo, de enfermedades raras, donde la incidencia es muy baja, de diversidad, puesto que el mundo es diverso y tenemos distintas etnias, como de calidad. El objetivo marcado, el fomentar la transición de la investigación básica al entorno clínico, y esto es un tema que también es muy interesante de desarrollar, los temas de calidad, el por qué a veces y el tema por qué surgen los biobancos, que en el año 2009 ya fue considerada por la revista Times como una de las ideas revolucionarias que cambiarían el mundo. Bueno, pues estos temas de calidad son importantísimos para revertir en una investigación de calidad. El objetivo marcado, el fomentar esta transición, nos facilitará el desarrollo de nuevos fármacos que van a mejorar la calidad de vida no solo de los pacientes, sino de la sociedad en general. Y, por supuesto, la investigación personalizada de estas patologías que a día de hoy están todavía esperando una solución en tratamientos que sean efectivos, así como también en terapias que nos den un diagnóstico de precisión en las etapas tempranas del desarrollo de una enfermedad, como pueda ser el cáncer. Por tanto, el objetivo va a ser fácilmente alcanzable si colaboramos conjuntamente a todos los niveles, no solo al nivel europeo a través de la plataforma, como se han presentado, sino también a nivel, a nivel internacional con otros organismos e instituciones y a nivel conjuntos con otras organizaciones. Y sin más, quiero volver a reiterar mis gracias a los organizadores y espero que esta incorporación de España como nodo nacional se traduzca en unos años como un ejercicio de éxito como país y desde luego se vea traducido en esos fármacos que, como dice BBMRI-ERIC, estamos para hacer new treatments. Muchísimas gracias y quedo abierta también para vuestras preguntas y para el debate. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias, Eva. Dado que hemos estado escuchando varios conceptos, ¿no?, a lo largo de cada presentación que hacen referencia a la misión de estas plataformas o infraestructuras europeas para generar conocimiento científico de base para esa traslación que se resuma al final pues, en soluciones para los pacientes, ¿no? Independientemente de la tecnología que vayamos a emplear o que tengáis en estos pipelines, el moto es muy parecido y además los pilares que compartís son realmente, pues bueno, pensados para realmente llegar al paciente y por ende a la sociedad, ¿no? Porque los pilares que tenéis, por ejemplo, formación también son muy parecidos. Aquí surgen varias cuestiones, ¿no? Cuando uno tiene esta capacidad, ¿no? y esta dimensión, Toni, yo muchas veces me planteo, ¿no? ¿Cómo hacéis este ejercicio o este análisis o este diagnóstico para identificar exactamente cuáles son las necesidades? Porque os tenéis que adelantar muchísimas veces a lo que finalmente un investigador o investigadora, en mi caso, que trabaja con organoides, va a necesitar en 2 o 3 años, ¿no? O sea, tenéis una manera de trabajar que bueno, creo que es algo relevante y que todos compartimos aquí en este foro. Entonces, yo te preguntaría, ¿cómo hacéis este scouting? Es decir, ¿cómo os podéis adelantar, además de una manera realmente precisa, ¿no? Porque yo he seguido el trabajo de EATRIS como investigadora y siempre me sorprende, ¿no? Es como, ostras, ¿cómo os habéis podido avanzar? How for instance, EATRIS can advance the needs of the research infrastructure in Europe. So researchers like me working in organoids or any other researcher working with animal models, how EATRIS does this scouting and how is this way of working for advancing therapies, not only for patients, but also to advance the research that we do in our institutions for generating this basic knowledge that at the end of the day is from where everything stems, right? So I would like to listen to Toni and then we will open the floor for your...
Yeah, I think the key point of the concept of research infrastructures at the value, their added value for the development of the European research area is that we are organizations that put together the best people with complementary knowledge. And this is the key question, because in science, there is no black and white answer, never. Everything is kind of gray and complex. So in a system that has tended over the last few years to develop a siloed solution, what research infrastructures are trying to do, right, Jens, is to revert this process, understanding the complexity of biology and having the ambition of tackling the big questions, putting together the best people. And the best people that usually, sometimes they work in different communities, they have different expertise and different priorities. It's like building a wall with different bricks that are a little bit different, but at the end make some sort of robust structure. For me, this is the key concept. And this is an extremely rewarding exercise, because at the end of the day, you establish a dynamic within the research infrastructures where you feel that you are contributing with your knowledge, but at the same time, you are learning from the others. And this is an exceptional platform that allows you to do that, both at the international level, and I am sure that now with the incorporation of Spain, Spain to BBMRI, will happen also at the national level. So there is a wonderful journey in front of us.
I think this symbiosis is perfect, and I think that you have put this in very good words, right? So how can we profit from each other, and how this circle can be closed and also speed up and accelerate, which is one of other key words that I have been observing in the presentations, how to accelerate and how to boost and how to finally arrive in the final destination in a precise manner. So Jens, I really love your presentation, and it was, I think, very inspiring for us. Many of the people who is attending today here belongs to the platform Biobanks and Biomodels from the Institute of Health Carlos III. And as Eva was commenting in her talk, most of the biobanks in Spain have been waiting for this moment to become members of the infrastructure for many years. So I also have some other very naive question. How can you empower communities to accelerate these discoveries and to turn them into reality? So how is your mode of work? So I see that you have explained very well, but maybe you can put an example about how some project did take this speed and how acceleration really was the key component for getting a specific point in the infrastructure. So maybe you can give an example, and this will be also very well touched by the audience.
Yeah, thank you, Nuria. I think let's pick really one example, as you say, and I think if I account for the IT infrastructure, which really an overarching network tool, which should enable and enables actually scientists to accelerate, as you their research, because they might need not to take care of so many things locally because there is already so much. And I think this is an activity which is brought together by the community itself, but coordinated by the headquarters. So the different groups working from different member states on making all these IT tools working together. And as a scientist, you can have different entry points to look for what you are in most need of. If it's samples, if it's biomolecular resources, any guidance, any trainings, etc. I think here it's really important to realize that certain research quests can't be answered just locally. If you think about rare diseases, you will never find enough patients or patient samples of a particular rare disease in one local biobank. This is just almost by definition not possible. But if we look at cancer, we also know that the more deep phenotyping we do, the more cancer becomes almost a rare disease. So if we then look forward to molecular tumor boards, where it's really at the interface to research, and you're looking for digital twin to have the best guess treatment suggestion from a clinician for tumor patient who has failed all the routine therapies, then you would like to have this patient, this digital twin basically somewhere in Europe or even in the world to make the best treatment guess. And this is the power of, I would say, this IT infrastructure, where the biobanks also can support it locally, but they can be also seen as part of a national network and of an international network, and can highlight and visualize their samples, their data, their tools to the fullest. They can even integrate then their collaborators for biomolecular resources. And I think this will accelerate really science gain or science results that the individual scientist doesn't need to care about the consenting of patients, because this has been already taken care locally by the biobank. The data transfer, sample transfer, because this we have guidelines, we have policies how to do that, how to support that. So it's really the research that the scientists can focus on. And I think here within the BBMRI, we provide the entire portfolio pipeline. So you can even go and pick what you need for to answering your research question, and you can just go and start and get the results done and focus on publishing, which is important for scientists to get the next funding and continue, so to say. And I think it's a win-win situation for all of us, but particularly for the patients in the end.
Yeah, thank you so much for your answer. We also have a question in the chat, and he's asking about how the private industry can have access into these platforms, specifically big pharmas, for example, and which are the requirements from these companies to get access into these platforms, for instance, in terms of cost. So I don't know, Toni or Jens, maybe you would like to answer?
Yeah, I can start if you want. We provide services to the research community. And from our perspective, the research community is those stakeholders that participate in the development of the research process. And of course, the industry is one of them, and particularly when you're talking about the big pharma development of molecules. There is no special requirement. We are a network of public organizations that have the specific capacities, and the only requirement is quality, ethical issues, and a process which is structured. So we are open to offer our services to those that follow in certain, let's say, principles, need that particular technology. What we do is when one big pharma comes to us with a particular service, we screen in our community and we explore the willingness of our research institutes to provide that particular service. It is for the industry to choose in a completely transparent model which service provider they want to use. And from that point, it's a decision and it's a dialogue between the academic institution and the industry for establishing the collaboration. So it's a simple. We want to be, let's say, facilitators of this connection.
Yeah, and maybe from BBMRI side, I think there's 3 levels which should be considered. The first level is really at our highest decision-making level in BBMRI-ERIC, where the stakeholder forum pillar industry is actually in a drive almost. So BBMRI, with our status, listen to industry, what they feel, what they for, basically, so that we all develop according to the needs also of industry, not only the patients and scientific societies, but also industry. So they are clearly part of our stakeholder circle, so to say. So they have a very strong, if they're interested, they can approach me and then we will invite them to just listen to them. The second level is where we do co-creation. So we have to approach matchmaking projects where we together identify gaps that are there, where we or where the academic side probably won't reach further without industry, and where we do really co-creation. If it comes to accessing the service and developments from BBMRI-ERIC, all the services, as well as Toni was saying, EATRIS is also open for industry. We also know that there might be some, particularly for some biobanks, providing some data to industry because the patients might not have given consent. And that's why in our search tools, we have basically also the tick box that you can select that samples and data are available also for industry. So that makes it easier to pre-select and then not send a request out and then get the feedback back that no, sorry, samples are not available. So this is specifically tagged in our system.
Thank you so much. And I would like also to give the floor to Maria Jose Marin. She has been organizing this course. The platform we participate, but I'm always telling that the course had been possible because of her. And I would like her also to participate in this small debate. And maybe Maria Jose has some key questions to share with us. So Maria Jose, if you want to participate, please join us. Okay?
Yes, thank you very much, Nuria. Thanks to you all because your talks are very interesting for us. I know that in our audience, many of them are young researchers. And I want you, Toni, to tell them how do they can accede to the training programs of EATRIS.
Yeah, so when, at least in EATRIS, other research infrastructure have slightly different models, but at least in EATRIS, when one institution belongs to EATRIS, they start a flow of communication is permanently established. So EATRIS shares with the institution their monthly and yearly agenda and provide, put on the table on the possibilities that we are trying to offer to the community, including training programs. And then it's for the institutions to decide if a particular person is interested in participating and for the person itself. It's also a matter of communication. And now that Spain is going to join the BBMRI family, based on the experience that we had in EATRIS in Spain, and also this is a message for Eva and Nuria, one of the key elements, happens also in other national now, but Spain is a little bit of a complex landscape. It's huge, different institutions, but I think the Spanish institutions have this kind of patient-oriented mission, which gives some sort of common identity. Communication is a key element, because what happens is some of the information that is released by the coordination and support nodes do not reach the individual researcher. And this is a responsibility of the institutions, that they have to internally decide a process by which the communication that comes from the ERIC organization reaches the community. Because what happens sometimes is that there are activities that require a fast response, and Jens has experienced this recently that suddenly there is an opportunity in form of a call of the European Commission, something like that. And the time that from the coordination and support teams, we have to share this information, the community requires that sometimes the answers they have to come in 72 hours or enrolling in a course or something like that. So it's important that communication channels are fluent, and one of the recommendations is that every institution that is part of one research infrastructure should have one person that with a specific responsibility of making sure that the communication flows efficiently.
Thank you very much. Another question that I have thought, how BBMRI and Spain in BBMRI can affect Spanish biobanks and Spanish researchers. What advantages we will have being part of a BBMRI?
I can just start by saying that I think the advantages is just to expand ourselves in an open European environment with everything that comes in for collaborations, as we mentioned, also to increase the number of samples that are available, not only to have access to samples that are very important for research, as is in the case of rare diseases, as Jens mentioned before. Mm-hmm. Maybe we managed to do local projects, since Spain is local, I mean national projects. And also it's true that Spain has been collaborating during all this year in international projects. But I think that this is a very good way to gather all the arsenal of resources that we have and to put them in an organized European consortium that will allow us to collaborate in a timed, organized manner together, not only with the other colleagues at the European level, but also to other organizations as ECRIN, EATRIS, and so on and so forth. I don't know if Jens wants to add something else, but I think this is a fantastic opportunity to join forces. As I finish my presentation, I think we get many more opportunities if we are all together.
I think we all agree that the turnover rate of giving and handing out samples and data from biobanks could be higher, because we collect as biobankers as much as we can. And I think many samples and data just stay there, not used. So through BBMRI network, you can basically visualize that they are available for a global network almost. If you then would like to share the samples and data in a very particular case, this still stays whoever is the PI or the biobank or what the consent allows. But visualizing it is also something which helps to enter into projects with basically reimbursement funding, etc., etc. And I think this is something which on an international scale is something which should not be underestimated for the biobanks locally.
And another point I would like maybe also to mention, Jens, is that as a country, we can also benefit, and also for the audience, from IT tools that we can develop in a more synergistic manner, but also without reinventing the wheel, right? So you will be, and you are already starting to be a very important partner for us, and also for guiding us in this tremendous work, because one of the major goals of the call for the constitution of this national platform for biobanks and biomodels was to generate this catalog at the national level. So one of the major issues we have in our country, as Toni was mentioning, is dispersion or kind of like silos already in a small country like ours. So we are also very eager to join BBMRI-ERIC, and also I think it's also good for the audience to get to know that you are very supportive in those terms. And I think also it's important for us to recall that we cannot do this alone. We need to work together, and we need to make our data available, and also fulfilling some of the European principles, talking just about fair or data sharing. So we are really happy for joining in this sense. And I also would like to add some other question from the audience. In the first part of the question was about how industry can get access into these platforms, but also which is the feedback from the work of the platforms to the society itself. So maybe we can repeat ourselves a bit more, but I think it's important also for the audience to get to know this with an example. about how society or patients really can have access to the work that you do. Maybe Toni, you can start, and then Jens can complement.
So if I can still BBMRI tagline, making new treatments possible, developing new drugs, new clinical processes, new diagnostics, and at the end of the day, creating something that is going to tackle an unmet medical need. And this is a long process. I mean, a solution doesn't emerge like this. We all know, we are researchers. The society, I think the example of COVID-19 has been very, very interesting, because when the pandemic exploded, the entire society looked at science asking for a solution. And what happened was a little bit of a miracle. There was this kind of amazing energy coming from the entire research community, putting the industry as members of the research community. And finally, this kind of miracle happened of the fast development of vaccines and so on. But this is what we are here precisely because of this. And I always like to say that the aim of a scientist shouldn't be to publish in Nature of Science. This is not the aim. This is the tool that a scientist has to share their knowledge with the others. And in some sort of perverted model that basically the funding bodies have created, that is assessing and is asking from us, publishing, there is this risk of forgetting that the real reason for what we do is to use science as a knowledge for generating these novel solutions for improving the society.
Yeah, I can't agree more with Toni, but also more maybe from a technical point of view, how to reflect back to the community or to the public is also happening in several ways. And I think publications from scientists is one part, but this is normally not read necessarily by patients. I think what from BBMRI side we have is also basically in most our member states, there's a National Biobank Day or an open night of the biobanks to explain basically what biobanks are about. And this is for children, where schools are invited up to adults basically to realize how we can support precision medicine to the fullest. In our annual conference, Congress, there are always patient advocates invited. At the last Europe Biobank Week Congress, we had actually 3 sessions composed by patient advocates together with scientists, what has been to the benefit for the patients, but also on the other way, explaining biobankers what is important for patients. So really have a very intense exchange. And of course, I think we can always do more to inform and alert the wider community what we all doing. I think this is something we all strive for together with EATRIS and with other life science research infrastructures. I think there's always room to grow part, but yeah, there are a lot of activities to reach out and to engage.
Yeah, I would like to add as well that based on empowerment of patients, that they can be used in just like that, used in not the way of abuse, but they could be the speakers of the activities as researchers do. I mean, it's been a movement of public and patient empowerment that has been very successful indeed in the biobank field. And this is because, of course, we need to put in value what science means, and also what it can't revert to them, and then the patients and the community in general, because we must not forget that biobanks don't have only patients, they have donors, they are longitudinal cohorts that will be used in deciphering new diseases when they come in this collective, but they can be used as a speaker to increase the voice of the value of science for us, because we are all potential patients and users of these discoveries, but also for the general community of researchers.
I think if I can add something in Spanish key, because I think there is one particular element in Spain that where the research infrastructures are going to play definitely a positive role, and we've seen this in EATRIS. Spain, for years and for historical reasons, had a strategy of its own health and research model based on individual projects to research groups. So there was some sort of cash flow of money that went directly to a group for doing their own research. This has been, at a certain extent, I think, negative, because it has created a scenario of first fragmentation, and it has not promoted ambitious collaborations. So one of the things that, and still Spain has this map, Jens, of little fragmented groups that they have their own little project and they leave and they work with this little project. One of the effects that being part of a research infrastructure is having is pushing the Spanish community towards an ambitious mode of cooperation with other European partners. And this definitely is step by step changing the landscape of the Spanish reality. And this is especially important for the new next generation of researchers. So institutions like CREN, BBMRI, and EATRIS should be used by the Spanish scientific community to make sure that we leave our comfort zone and we expose ourselves to the big challenges that are currently sit at the European level. And also, another important thing from a Spanish perspective, sorry, Jens, but I'm wearing my Spanish hat now, is the fact that Spain has a lot to offer to Europe, a lot.
Absolutely.
And it's absolutely amazing. And we have also the responsibility, let's say, as a country that is part of building the European project, of offering our capacities to our European colleagues. And most of the things that are happening in Spain are still a little bit unknown by scientists in Northern Europe. Only people with high profile, like Nuria, for instance, are well known, but still they are amazing Spanish scientists that are still in the darkness, and through research infrastructures, they can jump to this kind of more ambitious scenario.
I think, Toni, that we are in a magical moment now with this EATRIS, because we have the three infrastructures in place in our country. And I don't think James can correct me, but I don't think there are many countries that have the three of them in place. So I think maybe it's the time to prove that we are good, that we can make it, and then this is possible for us.
Yeah, and I think that in this regard, something which is very important, it's the culture of collaboration. So during decades, as Toni was mentioning, we have been getting or having the idea as researchers that we need to have our own project and so on and so forth. Some researchers have been successful, others not, but we need to change culture and we need to start thinking big. Because otherwise we're going to be totally out of the scope of everything, right? But so in this regard, Toni, it's also a matter of education and culture and how we can really adopt your policies and adopt your way of working all together. And for that also we need some funds, but I think this is not a matter of debate here today. But I totally agree that collaboration is key for success. Collaboration has been key for many of the researchers we have in Spain for many things. So I would love to see how we can also take profit from you, Toni, from not you personally, but from EATRIS and BBMRI for changing this culture and to go for this culture of collaboration, but to turn this into a reality. And as you have been commenting, this is not something that will happen in one day because we come from this culture. But I think that young generations have this very clear. Also because it's imposed from the system. So at the why Spain is having the Kingdom of Spain is in these three infrastructures is also because at the political level. So the mentality needs to be changed also from that rough for us to really get and start running all together and make these changes. And I'm very positive that we are in the good track because we have also adopted policies in this regard and we are now in the European framework. So either we start working like this or we are going to be totally out. So maybe it sounds very rough for the audience, but I think that many times this have been the way that things have been changing in general terms. So I am also very convinced that we are going to be ending up with this culture of collaboration already adopted without talking very much about it, right?
I think that the historical way to manage the private collections that researchers have to change, because they cannot share them and they cannot collaborate with another researcher groups or with consortiums. So, for example, in Cantabria, many groups have private collections, sample collections, and it's very difficult to make them change their minds. So I think your talks will help us to convince researchers to change the way to work and to create a collection that could be shared in Europe in BBMRI.
Let's cross our fingers, Maria Jose. We have a big, long road to go ahead, but I'm sure we will manage.
No, but again, I'm positive for the new technologies that we will have, and we have, Jens and Toni, we have a very strong community in organoid generation, for instance. So as coordinator of the platform, you can introduce some elements that are going to be forcing the community. So for instance, from the very beginning, I was telling to the different working groups, we are going only to be serving organoids that come from a non-private collections. This is totally, I mean, we cannot accept that. So maybe the starting collection that we thought we were having as a country had been reduced to 5 different types of organoids. But we are going to be working with the standards from BBMRI-ERIC and also having a look every 2 days in the EATRIS web, Toni, I should confess, to see what can we offer, what is needed, what people will be needing, and maybe to do this exercise of advancing a bit more and to see if we can really complement each other. But I think it's the only manner, by forcing and by imposing many times, that we can just speed up and really construct something that is going to be useful at the end of the day. And going into this organoid or other important technologies that are nowadays in the arena, I would like to ask to Toni and also to Jens, how or which is your personal perspective about how these cutting edge technologies like organoids or microfluidic devices together with organ on a chip. So these technologies that together they convergence, how these technologies can be or are for you advancing the field for a more human relevant approach to target human disease. So without forgetting the need of animal models, because these are our standard, and as a researcher, I'm always telling that we need the animal model to compare and to get functional parameters. So, but all these other techniques that are now in the arena, Toni, for instance. So, which is the convergence of these technologies for you the most?
Obviously, this is already changing. The landscape is already changing, and we understand that the preclinical validation of a biological reality needs the combination of different models. This is something that the regulatory bodies are already incorporating in the regulatory process, you know? And not only technologies, but for instance, specific biomarkers. Now there are specific approvals based on biomarker signatures, not on disease. So more and more the regulatory bodies, as a kind of the example of those that they have to give the final push toward the clinical decision-making process, understand the complexity of the biology and the capacity of the biology. However, I have to say that the big, as Jens mentioned, the big challenge that we have is that these fascinating technologies have to deliver products with the highest level of quality and reproducibility. And this is still a pending issue. So we have to be very honest with ourselves. There's still a long way to go. The problem here is to develop and to develop a roadmap for quality and reproducibility. This also needs funding. The public bodies are not very interested in putting funding in quality, unfortunately, and something like that. But this is also our responsibility. Definitely the landscape is changing. The European Commission has a specific unit at the Joint Research Center for developing alternative experimental models for based on non-animal use and in silico models. That we are going to see an enormous change over the next few years, but the change is already happening, and actually the regulatory bodies are changing the decision-making process based on that.
Toni. Maybe Jens, you want to add something, please? Do so.
Yeah, I fully echo what Toni is saying, and I think from my perspective, it really is a huge step forward for personalized or precision medicine, because it's so much closer already at the patient and at a time scale which is different from going through animal models. And this is not only for treatment testing, I think, but it's also for understanding the diseases much better, and potentially even regenerative medicine. So I think it's really a major step forward. However, as Toni pointed out, the quality is something where we need to account for, I think, on a overarching level. And I think here we can only learn from each other. So what I want to say is that the biobankers don't know all the recipes, how to do it best. I think it's always the interdisciplinary exchange between experts, bringing all the knowledge to the table to make it then happen in the end. And I think this is, Eva, if I can speak also on behalf of biobankers, but please compliment me. I think this is also the, I would say, character of biobankers, that they are there to support and enable others. So we are there to really share and not hoard, if I may say so. And I think this also goes not only for the samples and data, but also for the expertise. And there we are also open to learn from excellent scientists in adopting new technologies, and then help bringing it also to further into the clinic as well.
As I mentioned in my presentation, yes, so one of the things that I heard in the last meeting in Lübeck, the European Biobank Week, the best biobank is an empty biobank. We are for that. We are a service. I mean, we want to provide samples that are following high standards of quality, not only for the sample itself, but also from the information. And this is, as you and Nuria were discussing before, one of our main goals as a platform, to provide data with high quality as well, and to incorporate this data into your European or the consortia standards. And I think Nuria, as a coordinator of the national platform, has exactly the same goals, and is how we move on. I mean, with just providing, we are as an infrastructure for serving researchers, and this is our main objective, our main goal. So of course they are more than welcome to call our door, try to organize in the best way. And as Maria Jose mentioned, I mean, we have a long tradition in biobanking. I mean, I think we are one of the first countries that established proper biobanks. I mean, at the beginning of the 20th century, it was Bethune, a Canadian researcher who came into Spain to serve to help into the civil work that created the transfusion biobank in Madrid. And it was just in the early 30s. So we have a very long tradition. It's a question, as we mentioned, all of us, to change mentalities. We have just to think big. I mean, it's enough to be small. I mean, the time is over now. We have to join forces, because we have global challenges as well, as it's been proved with the pandemic. It's nothing new. We had it there around the corner a couple of years ago. We have to think big. We have to collaborate. And I think it's one of the goals, but I'm sure, I think it's one of the goals of the Spanish National Biobank and Biomodel Platform, as Nuria is nodding. And of course, we are going to help everyone that wants to join as a stakeholder and as a resource for our national node to complement what is needed at the European level. That will be also translated at the international global level.
So if you agree, we have 2 minutes, and I would like to thank you, all of you, for your super great presentations, clear explanations, and super helpful discussion. And I will also maybe take 1 minute to make a small wrap up. So we have got examples about big infrastructures, European infrastructures that aim to generate solutions for patients at the end of the day. And we have been also listening that interdisciplinarity is needed and transdisciplinarity is needed for increasing impact in the things that we aim to develop for patients, or the solutions we aim to generate for patients. So the integration of services is going to be key for that. And also we have been listening about acceleration and how to really make solutions for the society. And I will close then for this big challenge we have, that is to change mind and also to generate our own culture of collaboration in Spain, but also having a look in Europe. And again, to rely in our government and Institute of Health of Carlos III, because this platform belongs to the Institute of Health Carlos III. And if we are here today speaking as a national law representative, is because it has been a long run. I was not involved. I just came here just for making my task for this 3-year program. But I have seen that at the national level and at this level of the Institute of Health Carlos III, this work has been impressive for us to be here today. And thanks also to Toni for that, because everything that we see in a solution on practical terms come because other persons like Toni were thinking about this before we even thought about that. So when I was talking about how you accelerate and how you envision these solutions for patients, I think you, Toni and Jens, you are really pioneering in many, many things, but also in how to see what is needed for the research community and for the patients to make solutions, not only for patients, but also for researchers like me, as I was mentioning before. Again, many, many thanks for your time. It's been my pleasure to host this debate and this presentation. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Nuria.
Thanks to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. It was an honor. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Vamos a cerrar el curso dentro del Foro de Medicina de Precisión de IDIVAL, haciendo un breve resumen de todo lo que hemos visto durante estos 6 días. Comenzamos hablando de los desafíos ético-legales de la investigación con muestras humanas, en la cual vimos los desafíos a los que se enfrenta la investigación o la parte ético-legal frente a la investigación con Big Data, con muestras de células madre pluripotenciales, y cómo debemos abordar los derechos y mantener los derechos de los donantes, que al fin y al cabo son el inicio y el final de la investigación. La importancia de las colecciones de muestras biológicas, sobre todo para solucionar problemas acuciantes y urgentes, como ha sido la pandemia del COVID, con la colección de muestras biológicas de pacientes COVID que se generó en la plataforma de biobancos. Por otro lado, vimos también la importancia de las colecciones de ADN para los estudios genéticos masivos, cómo aportaron al conocimiento del genoma humano en general para saber lo que es normal, basándonos en lo que es normal, saber qué es lo patológico. Posteriormente tuvimos la charla de células de terapia CAR-T, en la cual vimos el paradigma del uso de muestra biológica en medicina de precisión, la importancia de las muestras de tejido neurológico y los bancos de cerebro, la importancia de las cohortes poblacionales. Hemos visto también el aporte de los organoides, los cultivos 2D y los cultivos 3D a la medicina de precisión, y la contribución de los modelos animales también en la investigación humana. El día de ayer vimos 3 ejemplos de muestras biológicas e innovación tecnológica. Hemos visto también un proyecto de biopsia líquida, pero muy innovador, que no estaba relacionado directamente con muestras biológicas. Y por último, un estudio de inmunofenotipado de la serie megacariocítica humana, mediante citometría de flujo, y su uso en el diagnóstico y pronóstico de distintas patologías oncohematológicas. Yo creo que ha sido un buen curso, y podemos terminar con una frase de Caroline Compton que decía: en el avance hacia la medicina personalizada, la tecnología es la maquinaria, pero los bioespecímenes son el fuel. Por lo tanto, el manejo de las muestras biológicas, tener muestras biológicas de calidad, con consentimientos informados que permiten compartirlas, pues es básico para el avance de la medicina.
Reitero, la plataforma Biobancos y Biomodelos del Instituto Carlos III ha colaborado en este curso, pero quiero agradecer sobre todo a María José, porque nuestra participación ha sido totalmente tangencial. en cuanto a la organización, la preparación de todo el material que recibían los speakers. Es decir, ha sido un lujo para mí constar como participante en organizar este curso, porque me gustaría aprovechar un aplauso virtual para agradecer a María José esta semana. Yo creo que hemos aprendido todos muchísimo y hemos escuchado algo que a veces parece muy difícil, porque como hemos comentado antes, España tiene un potencial inmenso en medicina de precisión, ¿no? No únicamente en la generación de conocimiento, también en aspectos regulatorios, también en aspectos que impactan directamente en la vida del paciente. Entonces, creo que muchas veces no somos conscientes de ello hasta que María José u otras organizaciones hacen un curso como este, en el que podemos ver como país, pues, cómo los investigadores, hospitales, biobancos, cómo participáis en esas iniciativas. Por mi parte, yo creo que ha sido un curso que estaba organizado en unos bloques que han sido súper académicos y han ilustrado muy bien, pues, aspectos como retos y oportunidades en la medicina de precisión. Se ha discutido en todas las sesiones, pues, cuáles son estos retos, como decíamos hoy, o cuáles son las oportunidades en el ámbito internacional, también en el ámbito de la plataforma, en el ámbito de servicios a nivel nacional, en el ámbito de, por ejemplo, la generación de estas cohortes en medicina de precisión, con la visión de UK Biobank, una visión nacional con Marina Pollán, la visión de la cohorte de Cantabria. Entonces, yo creo que en cada uno de los bloques hemos ido teniendo ejemplos desde una visión, ¿no?, más global a la visión más nacional, y yo espero que os haya servido muchísimo, y reitero que, bueno, un aplauso enorme a María José y a IDIVAL y a todas las personas de IDIVAL que han estado haciendo posible este curso en todos los aspectos organizativos y de comunicación. O sea,
no, yo gracias porque también que participar a la plataforma y temas SCREN nos ha dado muchísima más visibilidad y nos ha permitido, pues, hacer este curso, si tenía unas pretensiones, pues un poco más grande todavía. Así que nada, yo estoy encantada con todos los participantes, espero que a todos os haya gustado, que saquéis algo del curso. Solamente agradecer a todos los ponentes. Hasta la próxima entonces. Muchas gracias.